Hi guys, Dan here. Just to let you know, we're about to head into discussion of the trailer, clip, and panel for Infinity Train Book 3 from Comic Con at Home. If you haven't seen the clip, which has been recently posted by HBO Max on Twitter, I think, or you haven't seen the trailer and you don't want to know anything about the show going in, then this is not the podcast for you. Just letting you know, I go into full breakdown mode. I even try to work out the sequence of events based on some of the shots. So yeah, I do go a little deeper on this than usual. So I just wanted to give like a little sort of spoiler warning up top. Make sure that you guys, don't accidentally stumble into information you don't want. Also, down below, theories, thoughts. What do you think is going to happen? In the comments, let me know. I'm curious as to what people are thinking this third season is going to be. So yeah, I'm going to leave you with it now. Here's some of my thoughts. Hello guys, and welcome back to Infinity Train. Rambling reviews, did it right, didn't say rewind, win, victory, end the video. No, there's stuff to talk about. We are here today having a chat about the Infinity Train Comic-Con at Home panel and the trailer and clip that they've released for Book 3. So for those of you wondering, I've taken a slightly different approach to Book 3 than Book 2. Because when Book 2 was airing, I just finished. So when the Book 2 promotion was coming out, I don't think I'd watched all of Book 1 yet. I think I was still recording these basically. So I ignored all of Book 2's promotion. When I finished recording my Book 1 videos, Book 2 aired like the next day or like very closely. Like I kind of led into it. And then I didn't see Book 2, and and at that point, Book 2 was out, and I still hadn't seen any of the promotion, so I just went, we'll just wait. I'll just wait till I'm watching it. There's no point in really seeing any promotional material for this, because when I sit down to watch it, I'll be watching it. It's out. It exists. But at the time, I was a little bit burnt out. I'd just done all of Season 1. So for Book 2, I went in no promotional material other than the train shorts. For Book 3, I'd finished Book 2. I was excited. I'm ready for Book 3 whenever that... Well, we now know, but whenever that was going to come. So I was happy to sit and watch the Comic-Con at Home panel without feeling like I was spoiling myself in any way. Because the trailer material is coming out now in a world where, like, those episodes don't exist yet. So if the episodes already existed, if they just dropped them the same day or something, I wouldn't have bothered covering this at all. But since we're a little bit ahead, let's break it down. Let's go into it. Let's talk about... So I've got some theories, got some thoughts. Very excited to chat about what we're coming up back to in Book 3. So, first of all, let's talk about the panel. It was a really fun panel. Not a huge amount of new information, but a lot of interesting things. So they had a little short on multiplane effects and parallax... Well, I call it parallax scrolling. Obviously, my video game... obsession when I was younger, like coming through there. I didn't realize that in animation it had a different name, but it's the same effect. It's that idea when a character is walking that different elements of the background moving at different speeds to make it look more realistic. They had a really cool video on that, which I thought was really neat, and if you're interested in that sort of thing, it's absolutely worth digging out. The other piece of really interesting information we got from that was the original Season 1. So they were ordered from pilot for oh damn, this isn't where I was supposed to start. Oh well, we'll keep going. But there was something else I wanted to cover. Let's wipe a little tear away because I've done this in the wrong order. Anyway, we'll start with the panel. I've completely lost where I was going. Oh yeah, so they were originally ordered. They thought they were going to get 10 episodes, so they took their story for Tulip and really condensed it and tightened it and made it a really tight 10-episode story, and then they were told that they had 20. So the reason Book 2 kind of happened is quite simply because they had 10 more episodes and didn't want to pad Tulip's story out. When they looked at it, they were just like, well, that doesn't make... Well, to do that, we've got this really nice, neat story arc that perfectly goes through it. So then they planned out a second story arc, which is how we ended up with the Lake season. And it looks like you guys were right as well. Some people commented when I was talking about Owen Dennis's comments on Twitter about, like, you know, watching it on HBO Max and making sure we do that. I was like, maybe that's for book 3. Book 3 was obviously well underway and basically finished when I was recording those, because it's coming out so soon. It's literally August 13th. So from what I can tell, we've got, like, 3 was already in production, basically, when I was saying that. 3 was a guarantee. 4 is what they're really questioning, and I'm guessing viewership for 3 on HBO Max is really going to affect whether 4 happens or not. So go back and watch the first 2 now if you haven't already, if you're in America and have access to HBO Max, and make sure that you're there August 13th for book 3 if you like the show. People did guess Grace and Simon were coming back, including myself. I talked about it a lot on my videos, and they said that the fans kind of predicting that and guessing that actually made the crew feel really unoriginal. But I would actually disagree with that assessment. It's nothing to do with originality. It's the natural place for the story to go, and to deny the natural progression of the story would probably be to hurt it. If that's where it needs to go, that's where it needs to go, predictable or not. And I think exploring more of Apex's ideas is the right move for this series. I wasn't particularly surprised by it. Made sense to me. Really did make sense to me. There were so many unanswered questions about the Apex, and I still stand by my comments about the book. I know there were some comments below that were like, oh, her referencing that she read it in a book was just like her trying to sound smarter than she is. I don't think so. I think you do that once, that makes sense, because then you've got that message across. There's no reason to do that twice in the same episode. The second you do it twice, you're telling us something. The title of this this new book as well is The Cult of the Conductor, and that makes it sound like, I think Amelia had some writings before she went off on her own. Prediction time, theory time. Amelia had some writings. I think she wrote a book, and that's what's inspired these kids, and it was already out there when she was still conductor. Because if you remember in book 1, when we saw Simon and Grace, I've looked back at that screenshot now, their numbers were already huge. So I think she had already inspired the Apex prior to being dethroned. They're just extra motivated now, and that's why when 1 took over, they immediately noticed. Because they already knew who the conductor was, which makes sense. So I think they were already a cult based around Amelia, but of course, I think in the course of the season, one of the things they're going to come across is Amelia. I think she's in this series. You don't call it the Cult of the Conductor and not have that be the case. I think they're going to bump into her, and she's going to be a bit reformed from her experiences, and that's going to really rock their world to know that she doesn't really agree with everything she previously wrote now. I think she's going to be maybe working on getting her number down and improving herself, and I think that's going to really totally screw the Apex's ideals and really challenge them and force them to reconsider their situation, their position. So I stand by my comments. That book thing is definitely not a coincidence. It's definitely not It's definitely not a throwaway comment. I think there's definitely something in that. I stand by it. Very excited to see how that all plays out, though. They did say that this is going to be a series about moms. In the panel, like, it's a lot of maternal relationships being tackled. I think that makes sense. We got Tuba sort of looking after the new character, which we'll come to in a minute. Hazel. We'll come to the trailer and we'll go through a bit more about those in a minute. But like, that makes sense. But we've also got Grace and Simon, who are kind of looking after Hazel too a little bit. Then we've got Grace and Simon obviously being parental figures to all these kids they've recruited for the Apex. So yeah, it makes sense to me that there's a lot of like maternal relationships in this series. They talked about the show having this is an interesting comment, and I think I really agree with this. The show gets a lot of advantages of being both kind of an anthology show and a serialized show, in that they get the advantage of getting to just throw new cast in every season to keep it fresh, but they also get the advantage of world building that you get on a serialized show. So it's like plucking the two best things you get from those two formats and sort of and running with it. So yeah, I thought that was really cool, and I think that is a very apt description of what makes this show so good. They admit, yeah, the train is wrong. They talked a fair bit about this in the panel. You know, who is the train? to judge people and what they need. The train is not necessarily good, and they sort of hinted that was getting frustrating through season 1's airing, because people were saying that, and they were like, we know, get to season 2, which is cool, but that worries me that they feel like season 2 was their chance to explore that, and I'm not now sure if they're going to go further. I hope so. I trust these writers, so I think so. I think they were just sort of saying like season 2 is where that the show first sort of like takes a look at that, and I'm hoping that this season we're going to get more examinations of the train and how it's not necessarily a positive force, and the systemic sort of oppression essentially that's there. They said they've got, other books are planned. They've got ideas for like 8 different series, but no official renewal yet. So watch the damn show was the words. There was actually a really nice message from Owen at the end about how the fans keep the show alive, and it was very sweet. And I think, I think there's a real chance we'll get more of this show. I think it's a great show, and I'm glad people are watching. What else? Let's talk about the trailer then. Let's talk about the trailer. So, obviously, Grace and Simon is one of the bigger reveals of the trailer that we're getting them. Not that was a surprise to me, as I've already mentioned. But the 2 new characters, Hazel and Tuba. Hazel is a sort of a small girl wearing quite an unusual mismatched outfit, which I'm going to come back to. I think I've got potentially a theory regarding her. And Grace and Simon are trying to recruit her, but she's already befriended a Null, in their words, who's this giant gorilla with like tubas over his shoulders called Tuba, who seems very like a gentle giant, but if provoked could definitely be a physical force. Teaming him up with Hazel is a brilliant idea. It's a simple but genius move, because we've now got this character that potentially couldn't defend herself, and now she doesn't need to. They balance each other quite well. She's protected on the train by Tuba. So I think, that's really interesting. We see a bunch of new cars in the trailer. There's like a neon jungle car where they first meet Hazel. There's like one looks like it's like kind of a bottom of the ocean car, like an under the sea car. There's like the fancy dancing car where they're all in suits and they're dancing. And I think that one is from like the start of an episode, because you see a clip of them dancing in there, and then you see Hazel like sort of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Is it cartwheeling out of there, going, that was so much fun. So either there is a whole episode set in there, and that's the end of it, where Hazel's coming out saying that was so much fun, or it's like one of those like short, we start the adventure and they're in the middle of their last one, or they're in the middle of the last car they were in situation. And if you're wondering, wait a minute, now the Apex don't need to visit cars, they can zip about. One thing I noticed in this trailer and the clip they released, so the clip they released is set in the unfinished car, which we're returning to. I actually think that's the start of the show. I think we start with Grace and Simon in the unfinished car, doing their beating up Null's thing, trashing the place thing, going for loot. The car looks like it's going to take off in the clip. And then I've just realised I'm going to have to put like a little spoiler thing at the top end of this, which is annoying. But there you go. The car's looking like it's going to take off and move, so Grace and Simon yell, and everyone gets off except for them, and then it takes off with them on it. I think they're getting separated from the Apex by quite some distance, and looking at the clips, you'll notice that Simon does have his grappling hooks thing attached to him throughout almost every shot in this trailer, except for there's a shot where they're with the Apex, which might be from the start of the show. Maybe they're with the Apex, then they go along to the unfinished car. But I think the unfinished car is pretty much right at the top, and I think they get separated from the Apex by quite some distance, and Grace either loses or breaks her grappling hook system to get them out of the car, because there's a shot of them grappling out of the unfinished car. I think that breaks or causes them to lose Grace's grappling hook. So then they're kind of stuck traveling on foot, because it's a bit dangerous maybe to hold on to Simon as he grapples her over. Or even the first car they then go into is the car where they meet Tuba and Hazel, and because they were bringing Hazel back, they're having to go on foot, which means actually traveling through the cars in the traditional passenger sense. That's, I think, the format for this is going to be. It's going to be them getting back to, or it's going to start at least with the premise of them heading back to the Apex with Hazel. But there's a quote in the episode where, you know, there's a quote that suggests, I've not got the exact quote. I thought I'd written it down, but I haven't. There's a quote from Grace at one point where she's like, "You really want to bring her back and put her with the other kids from the Apex?" Like there's like doubts basically. At one point, Grace is having doubts about bringing Hazel back. I love that we're returning to the unfinished car. I've talked about it in the context of my theory for how the show is going to start, but I haven't really talked about it in that sense. But yeah, it's such a neat car design. I'm really excited to see it again. So that's pretty cool. We got the fancy dancing car, the bottom of the ocean car, neon jungle car. Oh, that's my laptop making noise. So let's talk about Hazel a little bit. There's a bit where they visit the snow car where the Tulip was first. Tulip was, first found herself and met 1-1. I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, there you go. So let's have a look at the Hazel situation, because Hazel has an interesting mystery surrounding her, which is that she's got this number that's dark. There's a couple of potential explanations for that. It's possible she entered at the end of Amelia's time, before 1-1 took over, like while Amelia was like dealing with Tulip, but before 1-1 stepped in, and then she sort of slipped through the cracks, so her number isn't active. Or maybe the reason for her being there is gone. Maybe it's something really tragic and like she has nothing to go back to. But I think that's the first things that come to my head. But I'll be honest with you, I actually have a different theory, which is the one I'm not gonna plant a flag, but I am gonna sort of say that I think this is currently my leading theory. Spoilers? No, it's not. I'm not that confident that I'd call it spoilers. But once I put this idea in your head, you're going to be looking out for this. But I think she's a null. I think she's a null designed to look like a passenger. I think that's why her outfit's a bit mishmash. She's got this weird kind of like tie look going on. She's got this sort of leaf in her hair thing, but she's also like, she's got a number, but it's not glowing. So it's like the train tried to create a passenger, the visual of a passenger, but couldn't recreate it all completely, including the number, because the number is it's not glowing, and it's stuck at like I think it's like 337 or something like that. But what's interesting about it is that I suspect that it's not going to move either. Like if it's a dead number, it's not going up or down no matter what her behavior. So I kind of like that. I think there's a very strong chance that's what it is gonna be, because how great is that they become friends with her, they grow to care for her, and then find out that she's a null, not real by their own logic. That's gonna really challenge their ideas, and I think that's what's cool about this, is that if between bringing Amelia back and showing her having changed and doing that, you're really you're pulling the rug out from under them about their entire belief system, and challenging them that way and seeing how they respond to it is going to be fascinating. I suspect we're going to see one person go one way and one person go the other. Like I think we're going to see maybe, I'm not sure which way around, but like let's just for the argument's sake, like Grace changes her thinking and realizes she's been wrong this whole time, and Simon maybe doubles down. When people face hard facts that disprove things, they truly believe that there is like a backfire effect, like where they just double down even in the face of evidence. It's quite an interesting phenomenon. I think Adam Ruins Everything did an episode on it, but yeah, it's interesting, and I think there's a real chance that it's that we're going to see that, especially with potentially two very big ways to completely upend their entire belief system. So yeah, I think that's my theories out of the way. Some of the other possibilities I mentioned are possible, of course, like that end of Amelia's time, things slip through the cracks, so the number isn't active, or the reason for her being there is gone. Maybe she's been there so long that like her parents have moved on or passed on, and she's just sort of been stuck there in limbo. Then again, she's not aged. Amelia aged, didn't she? So she can't have been there forever. So yeah, I don't know then. I don't know. Well, I think I know. I think she might be, a denizen, a null in quote marks. So yeah, that was pretty cool. Let's see. What have I not covered? We do see some shots of Hazel with the Apex symbol on her face. So at some point they give her that. She sort of like... I imagine as they're traveling with her, they're going to slowly indoctrinate her. The other big thing, obviously... the 1-1 thing. Let's talk about that briefly. I don't know if I have much to say on this, but there's a really cool dramatic moment in the thing where they're in a car with like multicolored blocks and like a clock null. I keep calling them nulls now. I'm in their way of thinking, or speaking, I should say. A clock denizen, and they're like, oh, this null, right? And then the car starts to move, and they yell, "Oh no, 1-1 found us." Presumably he's dragging them right up to the front of the train to deal with them and talk to them maybe. But what's interesting is there's also a shot in this trailer of the gang getting separated. So, and it looks like over Hazel's shoulder it's that car. So I think what happens is that 1-1 figures out that they're in that car, tries to bring it to the front. It starts to separate, but Simon and Grace escape. They get out, they're on the other side, but the bridge cuts off before Hazel gets out. So and Hazel ends up going to see 1-1, not them. That's the theory. That's that theory. But yeah, that was pretty cool. We do have the cat. She's showing up, which is nice. Not only one shot of her in this trailer, so once again, she's probably not going to be integral to this series the same way she was to the first, but that's fine. I just want to see more of the cat. So yeah, it's pretty cool, the 1-1 thing. I don't really have anything to say on that other than it kind of makes sense that 1-1 would want to sort of have a chat with them and sort of maybe straighten them out. Why are you making your numbers go up? Stop doing that. But there you go. In fact, I think there's a chance that that's just before they reach the apex with Hazel at the end of that, towards the end of that journey, they get separated. Anyway, we see a dragon snake thingy, which looks a little bit like a creature we saw Lake pass through in a car, in her montage at the beginning of book 2. She sort of like is traveling through all these cars, and one of them has like dragon creatures. I think it looks like it could be one of those. So that's a car we kind of glimpsed before, but not properly seen. Interesting. We do see all the Apex guys lined up as well. There's a shot with the sort of lit. They're all kitted out, and there's like torches behind them. That could be an early shot before they head into the unfinished car to raid that, because Grace is wearing her mask, which she I think loses in that clip. So I have a feeling the order and sequence of events is they're at the apex where we start. We see them we see them going about their day. Grace and Simon get them all riled up because there's a new car that's dropped in a couple of cars away. They all, they go forward, torches, mask on, kitted out. They go in there. That's where the clip we've got comes in, which is basically them fighting the turtle denizens. And then eventually the trains, that unfinished car is like leaving, and everyone gets off but Grace and Simon. And then we've got the shot from the trailer of Grace and Simon being pulled out of that. And that's where I think they end up in the jungle car and meet Tuba and Hazel, and are sort of forced to trek through the car in order to get Hazel back to the apex. That's how I think it's sort of going to start. There's a really interesting shot as well of God, I'm still going. Grace being pulled through a portal. It looks like by Tuba. Very unsure about what that is. Genuinely don't know what's going on there. It's pretty weird. I can't figure it out. Like, I don't have any immediate thoughts as to what that would be. So it looks like in several of these shots, I'm trying to find one in front of me just to make sure I'm not going crazy and that I've seen this. Yeah, Tuba's carrying a bag in all of these shots, except for there's a shot of Hazel right towards the end of the trailer when she's talking about saying goodbye. It helps to say goodbye. And in that shot, she's wearing the bag that Tuba carries, which makes me feel like they may have, maybe there's a car with portals of some sort, and they end up tricking Tuba into going through one, and it closes, and that's why he comes out and grabs Grace later. Maybe theory, but very loose one. Yeah, it's unclear. Let's see. I don't know if I said earlier, but the reason I connect the fancy dancing car to the shot of Hazel cartwheeling is because I think you can see some of the fancy dancing car back through the door, which we'll come back to as a thought in a moment. Let us see. I'm just quickly flicking through to see if there's anything else I missed, but I think I've covered almost everything, and even my thoughts on how the first episode's gonna come together. It does end on like a really haunting song. I think the lyrics like don't need to be a worry baby when you're with me or something like that. Really haunting, Freddy Krueger-esque children singing stuff. Terrifying. Details from the previous season that I missed, I wanted to come back to. This is what I was actually going to start this podcast with, but completely forgot. Actually, just wrap up thoughts on the trailer. It's a really good trailer. Very excited for the season. Half of what I said could be completely wrong. And I know I've been talking very fast. There are a lot of details to get through. But on the whole, very excited. Lots of potential on board. Details I missed from the previous season that I wanted to come back to because I've got this chance to sort of add some stuff to what I said. The primary thing I wanted to talk about was I talked in the last episode about... Well, there's two things. I talked in the last episode about the use of the word denizens, and that my understanding was the first use of that in the context of the show, actually in the text of the show, was one referring to them as denizens at the end of of book 2. Actually, not true. He uses the word in his intro video right at the start of episode 1. So there you go. It's the right word to describe them. But yeah, there you go. I think that's interesting. Then the other thing I wanted to talk about very quickly was I rewatched it recently with my girlfriend Nadia, and I noticed book 2. This is so one of my concerns was the sequence of events before they got to the Toad car, because it felt like every story led into the other. And then suddenly they had all these pictures on their phones of adventures they'd been on. Well, Jesse had pictures on his phone of adventures they'd been on. I was like, you technically can fit them in between episodes 2 and 3. They don't go anywhere else because those 2 episodes link, obviously. They follow on directly. But it felt like, the end of episode 2, they're going, well, we're going to help you get that number down. And the start of episode 3, they're going, I'm practically an expert on numbers. It's like, it feels like the same conversation is occurring. It feels like they've just left. So I had some concerns with this idea that they'd been... One thing they do, which I think is pretty cool, is when they're coming out of the car that they've just been in at the start of episode 3, if you actually look back through the door, it's not the family tree car where they'd just been the previous episode, but it's actually the green car from the shorts and from one of their pictures. So they do set up their visiting other cars in between. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was I was kind of sad. And I was meant to mention this in the last episode, but I didn't get a chance. I just forgot it. That we never really saw a payoff to the short where one was in like wedding cake room or something, and then people all came in down on the ground, and I thought that was going to be the other end of a scene from the show where we were going to see, Jesse and Tulip running from the flex. That never really paid off, which means, like, is that a scene where they were chased that we never got to see? They had more encounters with the flex than we're aware of, or is it something else? Don't know. Suspect they just couldn't fit it in. Like maybe that was the original plan and it didn't work out. Still sad about that. So there you go. Wow, that's a lot of talking I've just done. Had a lot to get through though, and I wanted to do it under 30 minutes, which I've just about done. Yikes. So thank you very much for listening. Of course, head over to HBO Max and rewatch the show on repeat if you can. Also on the 13th, make sure you're there for the new series. I think in terms of this, I don't know how I'm going to do it. It's really going to depend how they release it. I haven't looked into it yet, and if they've announced the exact release schedule, the fact that it just has the date August 13th, it could be anything. It could be starting August, as in like that could be the first episode, and they could do it once a week. They could do 2 a day. That's a Thursday, I think. So I think there's a chance we'll get 2 episodes a week for 5 weeks. But I do think there's also a chance they'll just drop the entire series. And if they do that, I'll just do these at my own pace. So God knows when you'll get them. I'm not gonna power through them at the speed I powered through the last ones. I'm probably gonna draw them out a little bit this time because, quite frankly, it's gonna be a while till we get a book 4, I think. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Super excited though. Hope you are too. Thanks very much for listening, and I guess I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks' time for more of this.